Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to a hypnosis session designed to create a change in intensity of emotion to something that was very symbolic. And working with this client, it was evident that a trigger for them came from somewhere, as everything does. Everything has a point of inception. We're not born with beliefs and emotional triggers. It comes from somewhere. And this individual could recall a time of a classmate licking a button and weaving it through paper. So that could be a cause of disgust because they knew that they didn't want to touch the paper that the button was connected to because it'd been licked. So it's this kind of element of transference that the disgust from licking the button then became on the paper. So it was just an association. And also this idea that buttons represented some kind of shame. So that if, for example, there is someone, let's say a child, that is, let's say, very sad, very lonely, unhappy all the time, and wears a bow tie, it's possible for someone to link the idea of wearing a bow tie to shame or low status. And that's the kind of thing that this individual had an idea could be a cause of this feeling of embarrassment or humiliation linked to buttons. So there's two key things you're going to hear in this particular session. One of the hypnotic tools that is quite good for introducing metaphor in an indirect way is to communicate suggestions through a story. It has one or two levels of disassociation depending on how you frame the story, but it also avoids the element of the mind trying to reject a suggestion because it's not implicitly for the individual. It's almost a side effect of them just overhearing this story. And a lot of stories serve that function. It's a story of bravery or courage or overcoming adversity. And you get the lessons through the story, even though you're not the character in the story. So you're going to hear that to begin with, and then direct suggestions that are designed to give a different symbolic meaning to buttons. So rather than it being shame and disgust and embarrassment, you're going to hear things where it represents pride and status and respect and honor, and almost like a discrete badge of honor. And when it has that different meaning, and here's the thing I've learned from years of working with clients, the emotion doesn't come from the thing, it comes from the meaning. So if someone's afraid of dogs, they're not intuitively afraid of dogs. It's because they're afraid that the dog is either going to make them feel anxious or there's an idea that they're in danger. It's the meaning that creates the emotion, not the actual thing itself. So that approach is just applied here to buttons. And I think it's important also to clarify that anything that isn't your experience can seem strange or weird if it's not your experience. If you have a fear of spiders, that will be weird for people that aren't afraid of spiders. They can't relate to your experience. Equally, if you're listening to this and saying, well, who would have such strong feelings of buttons? It's worth reflecting inwards and saying, like, what are your strong emotions linked to things that are unique to you? Personally, for example, I really don't like ketchup. Now, that's weird for most people because most people love ketchup, but I just don't like the smell or the texture and things like that. So we all have our idiosyncrasies which are unique to ourselves. For most people, they just get on with their life with those things because it doesn't really affect their life. But when it does, and buttons is one of those things that you're surrounded by people all the time wearing buttons, it can really be a negative influence. And that's why people would go to a therapist for change. So if you're listening to this thinking that maybe you have some intense emotional reactions that you'd like to change, there will be a link in the show notes where you can reach out to explore working with me one-to-one. For now, though, find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow any feelings of worry, stress, or tension to feel like it's leaving your body in that outward breath. So as you breathe in, you're feeling more resourceful with every inward breath. And in that outward breath, just feel that you are releasing anything that is holding you back. Any worries, any old beliefs, or any connections that no longer serve you. As you believe in the ability of your mind to harness neural plasticity, simply the ability of your mind to learn new things, to create new neural pathways, to develop new ways of thinking and new ways of feeling. So breathe in deeper than you normally would and exhale for longer. And notice that the deeper you breathe, the deeper relaxed you become. And I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine how it would feel to be walking in a library. And in that library, there is an area where a story is being told to children. But just imagine there is something about that story that resonates with you, that draws you in. So as you hear the beginning of the story, you find yourself captivated to come closer, to listen to the story attentively. And the closer you listen to the story, the more you connect with an idea of change. Hear the story being read. As you make yourself comfortable breathing in slower. Once upon a time in New York City, there lived a boy named Alex. Alex grew up in a bustling neighborhood filled with different people and sounds that defined the city. And despite the excitement around him, Alex carried a peculiar sense of shame and disgust that shadowed his childhood. When Alex was 6 years old, he witnessed something that left an indelible mark on him. He was in the playground watching other children play when he noticed a sad, lonely boy sitting by himself. This boy wore a shirt with large, shiny buttons. Alex felt shame for that boy and linked the shame to the buttons. And then perhaps just a few days later, maybe a week or so, Alex saw a different boy lick one of the buttons and weave it through a piece of paper. And at that point in time, Alex felt an inexplicable disgust, wanting to have nothing to do with either the button or the paper that the button went through. To young Alex, the act seemed unhygienic and odd, and he recoiled from the sight. Alex long forgot these memories, but he subconsciously began to associate buttons with low status, shame, embarrassment, and a lack of hygiene. And whenever he saw buttons, he was reminded of that lonely boy and felt a surge of embarrassment and shame. Over time, he started to avoid wearing clothes with buttons, preferring simple pullovers and zip-up jackets instead. However, as Alex got older, a gradual shift began to take place. He started paying attention to the people around him. People in important positions, professionals in the city, and even influential figures on television. He noticed something significant, that the most respected, successful, and admired people often wore clothes adorned with buttons. Crisp suits, elegant dresses, and sophisticated coats, all featuring prominent buttons. Buttons were connected to the attire of those who exuded status, success, and importance. Intrigued, Alex began to observe more closely. He noticed how a highly important person had shining buttons that gleamed under the lights, how a police officer's uniform had sturdy buttons symbolizing authority and protection, and how a renowned artist at a gallery wore a shirt with intricate, beautifully designed buttons that added to their charm and charisma. But rather than feeling confusion or jealousy at how these people can be so confident wearing clothes with buttons, Alex saw a different side. That the buttons represented a covert badge of honor. The more Alex saw, the more his perceptions began to change. Buttons were no longer symbols of shame or disgust, but that of pride, status, and respect. He realized that buttons represented a sense of dignity and honor, a discreet badge of importance that adorned the clothing of those who were confident and respected. Jealousy, shame, and disgust morphed into a sense of acknowledgement, respect, and appreciation. One day, many weeks later, as Alex was shopping for new clothes, he found himself drawn to a shirt with finely crafted buttons. It was a navy blue shirt, simple yet elegant, with buttons that seemed to invite him to a new chapter of self-acceptance. He tried it on and looked at himself in the mirror. And for the first time, he saw buttons not as remnants of an uncomfortable memory, but as symbols of his growing confidence and self-worth. From that day forward, Alex wore buttons with pride. The old feelings of shame and disgust became distant memories, replaced by a newfound sense of respect and honor. Each buttoned shirt, jacket, or coat became a testament to his journey of transformation, because Alex had learned to see the world differently, and in doing so, he had found a new source of pride within himself. And so, Alex walked the streets of New York with his head held high. Every button he wore reminding him of the respect, courage, and honor he had come to embrace. As you breathe in and breathe out, just imagine the person telling the story putting their book away, and allow that story to ruminate in your unconscious mind as you imagine finding a chair to sit in that library. Imagine making yourself comfortable, breathing in relaxation, breathing out tension, falling deeper and deeper relaxed. And as you relax deeper, I want you to imagine buttons as symbols of confidence and self-assurance. To imagine buttons on elegant, respected individuals radiating pride and dignity. And notice that you can feel any old feelings of embarrassment and humiliation melt away, replaced by a sense of acceptance and pride. as you start to see buttons not just as useful, but as emblems of status and respect. As you start to imagine you wearing buttons with a sense of pride, knowing that they represent your ever-growing inner strength. And from this time onwards, each time you see a button, let it remind you of your own self-worth and importance, and your ability to think of things differently. You can notice how buttons add to the elegance and respectability of your appearance. Feel a growing sense of respect and pride whenever you wear clothes with buttons. That you can imagine buttons as badges of honor, reflecting your confidence and esteem. And give permission to yourself to release any old, negative associations with buttons as you start to embrace their new, positive meaning. And as you imagine yourself in your future wearing buttoned clothing, imagine seeing yourself beaming with a deep sense of pride and respect. This is a new chapter. As you feel empowered by the presence of buttons, knowing they symbolize your personal adaptation and evolution. Each button you see or touch strengthens your sense of self-worth and dignity. Any need to control or objectify melts away as your own self-worth and feeling of importance rises. You will respect how buttons can add to a feeling of professionalism, status, and confidence. As you allow any lingering feelings of shame to dissipate, replaced by pride and honor. As you see buttons as symbols of your journey towards ever increasing confidence and self-respect. Feel the pride and respect that buttons bring to your appearance and demeanor. As you can embrace buttons as part of your own personal style, reflecting your inner strength and status, and realizing that any shame or disgust was just based on old associations that have long since changed. Because now you can feel a profound sense of pride and respect whenever you wear or see buttons, knowing they symbolize status, value, and honor. I want you to imagine leaving that library, but before you leave, imagine going into a bathroom, seeing a full-length mirror, and imagine seeing yourself wearing a smart shirt, buttoned all the way up. And notice how you can see yourself looking confident, looking full of self-worth, a sense of dignity and self-respect. And just acknowledge that what buttons symbolize has now changed. And once it changes, it's difficult to go back to how it used to be. Feel yourself leaving the library and returning back to the present moment. As you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose, just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, connect fully with the present moment as shortly I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling resourceful, confident, where buttons now symbolize something new, something that exudes pride, respect, honor, and confidence, starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.